Om Namasri Yatirajaya Vivekananda Suraye Satchit Sukha Swarupaya Swamine Tapaharine. So since I have to uh, leave for Newcastle tomorrow, I thought I should take the Thursday class today. That is why this change. Even Saturday there is a class at about 2:30 uh, at Edinburgh in Scotland. So, and my return back to Newcastle is in the evening, so I may not be able to take the Saturday class. So I thought, let me not miss so many classes in a week. So instead of tomorrow's class, I am taking this Raj Yoga class today, which was due tomorrow, which was due to be taken tomorrow. Now, in Raj Yoga, we were discussing a lot about kleshas. Now we will come to a sutra which deals a lot with what is known as spiritual illumination. We talk of spiritual illumination. We want to know what this spiritual illumination or realization is. Normally, it is the attainment of that undivided consciousness, which is known as Sat, Chit and Ananda. That state is known as Samadhi in yoga, or even in Vedanta, it is known as Nirvikalpa Samadhi. But what does spiritual illumination mean? What is the word used? What does spiritual illumination do? Apart from it is spiritual illumination or spiritual realization is just a word. What exactly happens when one attains to spiritual illumination or spiritual realization is discussed here in the next few sutras. In Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, when you realize that consciousness, that pure consciousness which is behind the changing phenomena, it is known as prasankhana or prajna. Prajna is a very nice word. It means, Jna means to know. Prajna means to know properly, to know the thing as it is. What we know is just secondary knowledge. So that is not prajna, it is jnana. It is simple jnana. When we say what jnana you have, you say secular knowledge. That is also jnana. Some knowledge of some object, and the subject knowing the object is jnana. It's ordinary secular knowledge. But when you when you say the word prajnana or prajna, it means a direct knowledge or pure consciousness. So only spiritual illumination, when a man attains, a yogi attains, the Patanjali Yoga Sutra say, then only the kleshas I mean the tendencies for rebirth, they are burnt, they are reduced to burnt seed state. So the kleshas no longer trouble you, but still you are not free. The ground, that is the mind, the chitta, the mind stuff, in which these seeds lie. Now we have discussed earlier also that when a human being passes away, what happens? The samskaras or these kleshas and all the the causal body uh, transmigrates. But it has to transmigrate somewhere. It has to have a place where it can manifest itself in the external world. So it waits for either it stays in the subtle state for a long time, that is before it takes up another birth. That is what rebirth is all about. But when it gets a brain, when it gets its own mind, a proper mind to function through the senses, more than the mind, it is the senses that are required for a jiva to work out his karma. To work out his karma, his old kleshas or old samskaras are in seed form in the causal body. The causal body survives the physical body. But what happens to that causal body? Where does it, as I told you, it searches for a new body. So when it gets a new body, it gets a new brain, it gets new sense organs, and then it tries these seeds which were lying unsprouted. They are planted in the new mind, in the new body. And as a result, they get a chance to sprout. That is why moksha is attained. Your karma can be worked out only when you are born again. So one has to wait for a fresh birth. That is why they say whatever you have to do, it is better to do it in this life itself. We pray to the Lord, especially in the Indian tradition, we pray to the Lord that let me not have any rebirth. Because if I have a rebirth, then I'll have to wait in a suspended state before I get a new body, before the kleshas, which are in seed form, the unburnt seeds, are responsible for our creation. Even if the seeds are burnt, one will not have mukti unless the mind in the subtle mind stuff where the seeds lie, it continues to exist. So there is a state known as pratiprasava, which means destruction of the ground itself, so that even if there are some seeds, it won't get a chance to sprout. So there is no question of rebirth. This takes place according to yoga. According to the Patanjali's yoga, it takes when asampragnata yoga or nirbija samadhi. They call it nirbija samadhi. There's no bija, but there's no mind also. So it is known as, also we discussed earlier in the first chapter, it was known as asampragnata yoga, or also it is known as nirbija samadhi, where the mind is devoid of all any vrittis. Chitta vritti nirodha. The mind also goes. The kleshas or the seeds which give rise to the thoughts, even if they are destroyed, still the mind is there. So that mind is devoid of all vrittis. The senses, the sense organs, the mind, all get resolved back into the Mula Prakriti. Mula Prakriti is the Avyakta Prakriti. Prakriti has two forms. One is when it is one with Brahman, it is not manifest. When it is expressing itself, the creatress. So that is the idea of the entire Bija mantra. In the Bija, in the mantra, the Bija is something which shows the process of creation. So use the same Bija to reverse the process of creation. So when the ground or the chitta itself is dissolved, when there is no mind, then there is no vritti, then all the burnt seeds also of kleshas, they get dissolved. Then nothing is left to chance. There is no question of rebirth for such a person. So Vyasa, who is the commentator of the Patanjali's Yoga Sutras, he says, when the ground of chitta, the chitta itself is dissolved, all the burnt seeds of kleshas are also destroyed. Now, what does it mean? What happens when such a thing takes place? He says that when the mind of a yogi, having fulfilled the purpose of his existence, now everybody has come here to fulfill a purpose. Everyone has a purpose for living. Some people have to satisfy certain desires, settle old karma, many issues which are unresolved, we have to settle them. So the kleshas are also, as long as you have rebirth, as long as you have to work out your karma, the kleshas will remain. We may try to reduce it. We may try to reduce our samskaras, we may try to reduce our involvement in the world, but still, unless you become one with the Mula Prakriti, that is what the japa, the repetition of the holy name aims to do. Through a process of creation, the Shakti or the Mula Prakriti has created this universe. Now, a jiva, after passing through various cycles, after passing through many animals, many bodies, changing many bodies, it tries to become free. When he sees the body is not good enough to become free, it takes up a higher body. It goes on and on and on till it gets a yogi's body. Then, having got that body, the It requires a chitta to work out, a ground to work out the old karmas. The unsprouted seeds which are lying, it does not get destroyed unless it is worked out, it is burnt. Even after burning there, the function of the yogi is to burn his mind, to reduce the mind to the Mula Prakriti. It is known by a technical word which is known as Pratiprasava. Prasava means to give birth. Pratiprasava means to go back to the state which gave you birth. It is also known as, Swamiji used the word in Raj Yoga, that is involution. Now, Charles Darwin and others said that we evolve. No doubt it is true in the gross world. We evolve from amoeba to higher beings to animals and then human beings. Evolution goes. But a stage comes when there is pratiloma parinama or pratiprasava. We, we take the opposite route. We go back to the source because all our experiences in evolution are over. Then slowly the involution starts. That is why Swamiji says, in the whole world, everything moves in a cycle. It is a cyclical universe. Nothing goes linearly. Everything goes cyclically. A person who is born, he dies, then he is again born, again he dies. So everything is moving in a cycle. Similarly, creation comes out, then it gets absorbed into the black hole, as we see in the cosmos also. In some parts of the universe, creation is going on. It's growing, expanding, evolving, and suddenly you will find it collapses after a certain stage. That explains the phenomena of black holes, where everything is absorbed. We call it pralaya. Pratiloma parinamaha means involution. All that has evolved, after a certain limit, it realizes that true peace or true steadiness or true our eternal nature is not in creating, but in going back to the original state. So it is known, this Pratiprasava, it's different than the natural dissolution. When things dissolve, that is known as pralaya. At the end of every kalpa, you should not think it is the same. This Pratiprasava is different from the natural dissolution of this whole universe. This kind of involution does not mean Kaivalya. Kaivalya is a word which is sometimes used as for a person who has reached Nirbija Samadhi. His mind stuff also has been destroyed. So Pratiprasava should therefore be understood. The word Pratiprasava which Vyasa uses is a counter evolution, which is opposed to evolution and natural involution. There is natural involution which happens in the universe. We are not talking of that. It is at the individual level. You can choose if you want to get involved or evolved into more and more complex beings. Yes, we have the choice to do it. In fact, we have been doing it right from the lower animals. We were manifesting as lower animals. When we found that body was not enough to work out our samskaras, we took up higher and higher bodies. We realized our higher and higher dimensions, the physical possibilities, the mental possibilities, all the possibilities we tried to uncover. And when the spiritual possibilities were uncovered, human being reached the culmination of the goal of his life. So, Pratiprasava is the goal of the life is truly reached when we reach the highest state, which is oneness with Purusha or oneness with Brahman. So, resolving means we resolve the senses, the mind, the ego, asmita, everything back to their primordial cause, that is Prakriti. It takes place only after Nirbija Samadhi, which is also known as Nirvikalpa Samadhi in Vedanta. Now we come to the 11th sutra of this chapter, that is known as Dhyana Heyaha Tadvruttaya. Dhyana Heyaha Tadvruttaya. So the vrittis of kleshas are eradicated through dhyana. That is what this 11th sutra says. dhyana heyaha tad vrittayah. So, unless you attain these vrittis can be eradicated, or vrittis of kleshas which are giving us pain bearing, kleshas are pain bearing obstructions. They are nothing but vrittis. The vrittis of the kleshas, that means the painful vrittis, can be eradicated only through dhyana. That is why we are asked to meditate. That is why after doing japa, we try to reduce or create an atmosphere of counteracting the kleshas, and when they have been attenuated or reduced in power, then we try to do dhyana. It is only in that sukshma dhyana that the vrittis are destroyed. The mind stuff, the chitta, can be destroyed only when there are no vrittis. No vrittis means that it is the state of dhyana. So dhyana has to be understood in the proper way here. The this sutra does not very clearly mention the sthula state of the kleshas. Kleshas have their gross manifestation also: anger, jealousy. There are so many things which are manifesting throughout our life. But there are certain vrittis which are subtle than this. These are not as strong as the sthula vrittis. Here, sthula vrittis are not meant. The subtle vrittis, that is the kleshas, the subtle kleshas which are there, they are the source of all trouble. Other vrittis like seeing something, perceiving certain things, hearing certain things, they are normal vrittis. But when they are attached with these kleshas, when you have strong like, strong dislike, a fear, so all these five kleshas, or ignorance, seeing one thing as another. So there are so many misunderstandings and misinterpreting the data which our sense organs give to the mind. When we do that, either through avidya, asmita, raga, dvesha, or abhinivesha, which are the five kleshas, the vrittis keep on rising in our mind. So here what he means is, only when you do dhyana or when you meditate, these vrittis can be stopped, can be controlled. Which vrittis? The pain-bearing vrittis. Life is so full of suffering, pain, and so many things. So Patanjali teaches us a very logical way to deal with this, kleshas. So that which is sukshma, of course, some scholars say that which is sukshma is known as samskara, because we can't see it. That which is sthula is vritti. Only when it becomes a vritti, we understand it. Only when we get angry, we know that there was this seed of anger inside us. The seed of anger, the seed of jealousy, the seed of lust, the seed of so many things are there. Nobody is free from that. But only when it manifests and comes to the surface, normal people understand it. Then they say, oh, why do I get angry? Why do I feel all these, get all these fears? These kleshas are in seed form. So in sukshma form, if it is there, it is known as samskara. We have in our chitta something known as samskaras. These samskaras are tendencies. They are not the real vrittis. So Bhoja, who commented upon the sutra, says you have to, that which is gross is vritti, and that which is sukshma, that which is sthula is vritti, that which is sukshma is samskara. So dhyana here means ordinary meditation or concentration. Therefore, we have to remember that the vrittis of klesha, which have begin, the vrittis of kleshas which we are having in our mind stuff, and they have begun to be experienced as pleasure, sorrow, delusion, it can be destroyed only through dhyana, which is of the nature of concentration of mind. So that is the function of dhyana. So by the practice of meditative techniques, the refined mind of the mind and the elimination of the gross vrittis take place. That is how these people are translating it. So now we come to the there are many ways of doing it. As we said, we first start with Kriya Yoga. We destroy, and then by Kriya Yoga, we can subdue the influence of the kleshas. That is why Karma Yoga is always encouraged in the beginning. You do a lot of karma, you work out your gross karma first. There's so much of karma left to be worked out. Everything cannot be worked out through dhyana. In fact, one cannot do dhyana unless one does karma yoga. That is why all these 4 yogas, Swamiji used to believe that after you have worked hard, you have done some very good deeds, did some unselfish work, without looking to results, you have served uh, holy people or served the world in whichever you can. That kind of seva or that kind of service leads to a state where you can do dhyana. But it is only after you reach the state of dhyana that this ordinary chitta vrittis or the tanukruta vrittis, the subtle vrittis, which are which is expressing itself in the form of hankering of for this thing, for that thing, to do this, to do that. All these things, these hankerings, these kleshas, and our fears, our tribulations, our sorrow, our delusions, uh, understanding one thing for another, all these things can be uh, first reduced to Tanu state by Kriya Yoga. And once it has been reduced to Tanu state, then through Dhyana, we can totally uh, take care of it. So here, Dhyana does not mean ordinary meditation which we try to do. It is a higher type of meditation. It has a specific word in Patanjali's yoga. It is not a prasankhana. That means this means is this prajna is born out of meditation or discriminative meditation. Now, when we repeat the mantra, when we try to meditate again and again, what happens is that mantra, they say, mantra chaitanya awakens. That is what tantras say. I'm not talking of the yoga. They have their equivalent in yoga, but they say the mantra chaitanya, the chaitanya of the mantra becomes awakened. That is, the chaitanya expresses itself. There is some prasankhyan, or there is some kind of consciousness, the capacity to enlighten our consciousness in the mantra. So after long repetition, a person feels that that mantra has been awakened. Now then it becomes spontaneous. Then the meditation that we do after the mantra is awakened is known as prasankhana or discriminative meditation. It is clear that meditation itself does not destroy the vrittis. Just by the act of meditation, you can't destroy your samskara. It is that prajna produced by samadhi, that is samprajnata samadhi. So dhyana means the highest form of meditation, not the ordinary meditation that we do. As a result of this dhyana, the kleshas which are in a very, very fine state, we have already controlled it. They will be burnt and to dagda bija avastha, so that they never sprout. We want to make sure, first we have to see that the seeds are less powerful. You don't give it water, you allow the seeds to dry, but you have to burn it. Dagda bija means the bij which has been, a seed which has been burnt. When you burn it, then you are sure it will not sprout. So by the meditation, the fire of meditation, if it is done properly, it gives rise to prajna, which results in samadhi. Or what does this prajna do? How does it lead a person to samadhi? By burning these kleshas. So first by Kriya Yoga, that is why we have to do lot of Karma Yoga to reduce the seeds to a very, very insignificant, the desires and all have to be reduced. As you go on reducing, then it becomes easy to control, then it becomes easy to reach the level of Samadhi. So that is what this sutra says. So by Kriya Yoga, the dense kleshas, the very, very gross kleshas become loosened. They become small. These loosened kleshas become still further small and insignificant by meditation. So constant meditation is another way of working out our karma. Otherwise, just by Kriya Yoga, you cannot do. So Kriya Yoga and Japa Yoga or Japa Yajna, both of it churns the mind, and then the gross kleshas get reduced to subtle kleshas. We feel, what is the reaction that we have when we reach such a state? We feel that we have more control over ourselves. The kleshas don't keep on bubbling. We feel more when people criticize us or people praise us, we maintain a kind of equanimity. We just don't take, because we know there is no end to people's opinion about other people. So one can go on seeing, criticizing, arguing, and saying this person is wrong, this person is wrong, but it's just a waste of energy, because these are all possible only if you have strong kleshas. And the goal of yoga is to reduce the gross form of kleshas to become subtle kleshas. Subtle kleshas are difficult to understand or difficult to recognize, because they are in the form of samskaras. They have not yet manifested. Whereas while doing Kriya Yoga, when you are doing Karma Yoga, there is a lot of people who will have some kind of jealousy against us. There will be quarrel, there will be misunderstandings. Many things happen. But that happens only when your kleshas are manifesting itself as raga, dvesha, anuraga, too much of attachment towards certain things, too much of detachment towards things you don't like, and afraid of some unknown fear which is always lingering behind in our consciousness. So all these three things can be reduced by Karma Yoga, by Kriya Yoga, as it is said here. Kriya Yoga, even Japa is supposed to be Kriya Yoga, because when you do Japa, we do a lot of karma. We burn a lot of the already attenuated kleshas. See, these kleshas are seeds. If the seeds are very big, it takes a lot of time to burn. So that is why Japa is not effective if many of our karmas are still lying. That is why, or pending. So that is why Sri Krishna is telling Arjuna, now you fight the battle. Finish your karma yoga first. Do it in a very detached way. Work very hard. Work out your karma. And then you will reach a state where you can burn the seeds. You first have to make the seeds very small, so that you don't have the risk of being born again. And even if you have some doubts that all the samskaras have not gone away, then by meditation becomes very effective. The meditation becomes so effective that it can, if one is not capable to do a lot of karma yoga, he can hasten the impact of karma yoga on destroying the samskaras by doing japa. So that is why Holy Mother was so particular that you get japat siddhi. Go on doing japa. It is because sometimes when we do work, there is a danger that we try to do our best, we try to do everything in a detached way. But when we get criticized for the work that we have done, whether we criticized for something which we have not done, even then people are ready to criticize. So it is during that time that the kleshas start multiplying, start adding to our old existing karma if we react. That is why some of the people prefer that they should not be in contact with people who arouse your kleshas, which are slowly dying down now because of your japa, because of our japa and sadhana. It gets weaker and weaker. So at that time, if it is suddenly exposed, again it will take a lot of time to counteract the influence of that japa. So now we come to the end of this this sutra, which says, see, in all the previous sutras we dealt with sukshma kleshas, those kleshas which have been reduced to the dagda bija state. Now the next session deals with sthula kleshas, that is those that have been reduced to the weakened state, tanu state. The other state, prasupta, udara, vichinna, are left out of consideration. Prasupta means which are totally deep, and which udara means which are expressed. So many kleshas are of 5 types we had discussed long ago. I think you know, prasupta means sleeping samskaras. For example, when a child is sleeping, his samskaras are not known, whether he is going to become a saint, or whether he is going to become a thief, or whether he is going to be an evil person. We do not know, because all children look alike, because the samskaras are all prasupta. The kleshas are prasupta. The kleshas are not manifesting because the child doesn't have the scope. He has not grown. He has not come in contact with the world. He has not been trained by his people and the peers around him, the teachers, the schools. Many things are yet to happen. The child is born innocent and he remains it that way. So most of his samskaras or most of his kleshas are known as prasupta. So we are not dealing with the prasupta samskaras. We expect that a person who is performing or practicing this yoga has grown up. He doesn't have prasupta samskaras. All the samskaras are now exposed because he has come in touch with the world. He has developed his jealousies, he has developed his fears, he has developed whatever he had to develop depending on what education he got. He or who his parents, how did the parents guide him? How did the teachers guide him? How did his friends guide him? All these things were responsible for the kleshas. So Udara means the kleshas that have started manifesting. Clearly everybody can see that you are a man of anger, or you're a quiet person, or you're a fearful person. So Udara samskaras exhibit or show the characteristics of a person when he is fully active. And vichinna, these are also not discussed. Vichinna means that which are uh, Udara means that which are expressed now. Vichinna which are a bit suppressed, but they are definitely on the way to manifest itself. They are not considered. We are dealing only with the sthula kleshas which we are having to deal with now. We have to deal with it. Even though the samskaras are weak, we have to still manage to live in this world. And how to negotiate this world, how to handle the samskaras. So first we discussed till now that we have to reduce this kleshas to tanu state through activity, kriya yoga. That's why Holy Mother says the idle mind is the devil's workshop. So you have to keep yourself busy. That's why some people who are intensely active, if they use it, I mean, some people are very active because they cannot help it. They are so restless they cannot sit. But I'm not talking of that activity. I'm talking of activity which is voluntarily done, which is willingly done. When you do seva, don't do it as a force. Suppose one is thinking or one is getting an opportunity to serve patients, say in the dispensary or in the clinic, or even in the company, you're serving some people or you're marketing certain things, you're selling certain objects. Everybody is coming in touch with somebody and is contributing something or the other. But if it does it in a detached way, his karma will work out fast. How does it work out fast? Because these kleshas, the more the kleshas express themselves in whatever state they may be. It may be udara, some may be hidden, some may be expressed, some may be giving rise to certain tendencies in a human being. So when all these things happen, you cannot do the Kriya Yoga helps to reduce the intensity of these samskaras. Then we do higher things like Dagda Bija by constant meditation. By higher meditation, we burnt the seed in the fire of knowledge, the fire of meditation. And then finally, Pratiprasava means we go back to the original state. We it is something like this. Somebody was very, very happy in the house. Suddenly he ventured to go out. He opened the door and he wanted to explore. And then he went on and on and on. There were difficulties, trials, tribulations. And afterwards, suddenly he realizes that why did I leave my home? I was happy there. There was absolutely no problem. Now I have opened the door and come out. Now I have to return back. Then he tries, but he has some of have lost their way. We do not know the way back home. Whereas yoga says, like a kind mother who takes that child through the uh, different parts of the town, city, and even goes on a pilgrimage, shows everything to the child, holding his hand. And finally, when the child is tired, it takes the child back to the original home. That is what Prakriti does. Prakriti, the feminine power, which is responsible for creation, anything that is creative, that creates, is considered to be feminine or considered to be part of Prakriti. So Prakriti creates and then create complications arise, the kleshas arise. They're all byproducts of this process of creation. And sadhana is how to go back, reversing the process so that we undo all the problems that we have created for ourselves by getting more and more involved in the external world. So we go reverse. We try to first find the center of our gravity. So these sthula kleshas have to be handled by Kriya Yoga. When they become sukshma enough that it's almost about to be burnt, how can they burn? By the fire of knowledge. That is why dhyana, kleshas can be sthula because one is gross and there are sukshma kleshas also. So it is, Vyasa gives a beautiful example. He says, there is gross dirt in the cloth. Suppose you are washing a cloth. First, the gross things, some dirty things have come. You first shake or just wash it in plain water. Once it has gone, then the subtle stain which you have to remove is using soap powder and other things. If you put the dirty cloth into the washing machine or in the bucket, all the dirt will settle there. So first thing, removal of the gross kleshas is like removal of the dirt which you can see. It's not the subtle stains which are there on the cloth. Then you have to observe very carefully. But the gross dirt that has accumulated for whatever reason, you just try to clean it. First, shake off. You go on shaking the cloth till the gross dirt falls away. Then, if necessary, you just dip it in water, wash it. That is what the first Kriya Yoga does. Kriya Yoga removes all our gross samskaras. And still, we feel that the samskaras are bubbling in the form of thoughts or vrittis. So how to handle that vrittis? That is why they say prasankhana means or prajna, to generate prajna. So all the spiritual effort that we do, whether we do Raj Yoga, whether we do Karma Yoga, or whether we do Bhakti Yoga, all the yogas are using different emotions or different aspects of the mind to counteract the influence of Prakriti. So that is why Prakriti herself, the Vidya Maya, tells us how to go back, reverse the process. And as we go on reversing the process, through the process, by doing Karma Yoga, by repeating the mantra, you will find more and more peace coming because of the effort of, just as I said, when we apply soap, we wash the cloth. But first thing we have to do, we can apply soap only if we have reached that state of dhyana. So it requires constant Kriya Yoga, which includes even a mechanical repetition of the mantra. One may not be 100% focused, but even that is a kind of Kriya Yoga. It is a very effective way of nullifying the effect of the past karma. That is why you see many of the people like this quote of Holy Mother, Japat Siddhi. Japat Siddhi means you go on doing. Don't bother whether your kleshas are sthula or sukshma. Go on and on and on. Once you have shaken off or washed off the rough dirt, then you put washing powder or soap or whatever it is, and then you do the higher cleaning. So higher cleaning is done by prajna, that is japa or sadhana, the meditation that follows that, or even in the process of some people may be touching the infinite or touching that supreme consciousness. That is when we say the mantra has been awakened or the mantra has become Chaitanya now. Now every repetition is going to transform you. Before that, it may be just be a mechanical repetition or a weak repetition of the mantra. But as you grow in strength, you become familiar with the power behind the mantra. The bija starts having its own impact. Then that light of prajna, light is not something physical. It's the light of understanding, which clarifies many concepts. You see, the thing, maybe we know everything, that there is a gross, there is a subtle, how to transcend, what we should do, what the Upanishads say, everything is fine. But when we say that, are we able to practice it? To practice it, we have to go to this applied knowledge, which is known as technology. So some people say that there is an external engineering. When you want to build a house, you do some kind of external engineering and create something. Similarly, there is some people would try to term it as inner engineering. Inner engineering means dealing how to engineer or how to take care of your own mind. That is known as inner engineering. Mind, its subtle body, samskaras, the whole spiritual quest is nothing but a sort of inner engineering. So this was discovered by the Upanishads long ago when they said that the only way to be not to be slaves of the slaves and the slaves under the influence of the gross universe is to go into the subtle world. That is what the whole sadhana does. Whether you follow the path of yoga, karma yoga, it tries to make you live more and more in the subtle. It makes you, here he says, it is like cleaning the external dirt first, that is removing the impediments or the kleshas which are udara, which have expressed itself so much that we find it difficult to deal with it. Our anger, our jealousy, there are so many emotions which come so often in our life that we feel, now first let me control all these things. Then I can sit somewhere and do meditation. So that is why karma yoga is advised first. Arjuna had this anger, that feeling of remorse for having lost the kingdom, and then anger over his cousins. So all those kleshas were very, very popping up. So Krishna knew. So he didn't ask him to leave his weapons and meditate. He said, fight, do Kriya Yoga, reduce the impact of the kleshas or vasanas or the samskaras. And when you do that, like you apply, put soap powder and then clean a thorough cleaning, then you do a much better cleaning of the mind. So that is what it means. So all these sutras which we saw in this second chapter, which is known as Sadhana Pada. First it was known as the first Vibhuti is the third one, Vibhuti Pada. The first is the first chapter which we discussed, where Yoga Chitta Vritti Nirodha. So Samadhi Pada, that is known as Samadhi. Samadhi means what is the goal that we expect to attain. Now we are discussing the 12th verse, 12th sutra we'll discuss today. That is of the Sadhana Pada. So we started with Kriya Yoga, you remember all the 10 sutras. So now Klesha Mulaha Karmashayo Drushta Drushta Janma Vedaniyaha. This residue, which we talk, many kleshas you have experienced, you have dealt with it. You have done enough karma yoga, one has done enough karma yoga and done a lot of japa also, which has made a mind a little bit steady. So this residue, the latent deposit of karma with kleshas for its root cause, the root cause is of course kleshas, is to be experienced either in this life or in a life to come. Now, klesha mulaha karmashayo drushta adrushta janma vedaniya. So, vedaniya means to experience in a very bad way. It has to be suffered. That is the proper Vedana means suffering. So, like Buddhism, Patanjali also believes that born again and again is nothing but nothing but suffering. So, one has to evolve in such a way that you are not born again and again into the gross world and suffer all the gross impediments, the kleshas and all those things. But that is not, it should not be considered as wishful thinking that, oh, I don't want to be born. So next word, no, even if you don't want to be born, the samskaras, the kleshas which are the root cause of the samskaras are still there. So whatever residue is there is to be experienced, if not in this life or in a life to come. That is why we keep on postponing. Suppose Arjuna asks Sri Krishna, what happens if I die midway? I have not completed my sadhana. You will start from where you have left. But then every effort should be made. We do not know how long we'll have to wait to get a body. That is why they say whatever you have to do is experience. This sutra at least warns you that it is to be experienced. You can't escape it. You will go with the same baggage of samskaras, whether you have burnt the kleshas, whether they are strong, whether they are weak, or whether whether they will impact you, they are in Udara Avastha or Vichinna Avastha or any other state, or Dagda Bija Avastha. So many states of the kleshas are there. So depending on that, you have to, because that is the root cause of your birth. So you have to experience them either in this life or in the next life. So that is why klesha moola karmashaya means that production and causal activity in which the klesha is the root. You do not know, it is going underground in the underground or in the subconscious mind, because our mind is not revealing everything to us. We do not know what we are capable of. Our good things as well as bad things are in a very, very uh, unmanifest state for most of us in the seed form, and they are not sprouting immediately. So you don't know which trees you have planted. Lot of seeds, suppose you have planted on a ground, and the saplings are just about to come. They have not yet come. Then how do you know what is in store for us? So also he says, for those uh, for whose production and causal activity the klesha is the root. So all our whatever happens to us, whatever good or bad happens to us in the course of our life, it is just because of the samskaras. We were trying to work out our own karmas in our own way. But Patanjali says the best way is to attain the state of yoga. That is why it's given Samadhi Pada in the beginning. The first chapter is known as Samadhi Pada. He first tells the goal. This is what you have to attain. Yoga means Chitta Vritti Nirodha. Whatever process you use, ultimately Chitta Vritti has to be stopped. That is only when you are free. That means there are no more births for you. You become free. Whether you call it Buddha's Nirvana, or whether you call it Nirbija Samadhi as in Sankhya and Yoga, or you call Nirvikalpa Samadhi. There are different methods, but the goal is the same. That is what say. So that what is in us, which all transmigrating selves are latent with iti ashaya. Where is that? Those samskaras or the seeds lying? They are laying in the they are lying in that in the karmashaya. Karmashaya means the receptacle. They are lying in the chitta. Chitta, or the mind stuff, is the receptacle in which our the seeds of our future karma, either in this birth or next birth, are stored. But by Kriya Yoga, by Karma Yoga, by Satsanga, by Japa, what we try to do is at least not allow them to come out. We can't totally destroy it. It's only when the light of Prajna falls, which is a much higher state. But we can definitely not remove all the kleshas, but we can have a control, reduce its impact, reduce its effectiveness, so that it doesn't disturb us, it doesn't disturb others. So if there are some questions, let us just take a few questions, then we'll conclude. And then we will meet only on Tuesday now, because of course the Saturday and Sunday classes will try to have it online. If it is there on Zoom, I'll send you the Zoom link. Otherwise, we'll just relay it on YouTube, either live or after the talk is over. So there are two meetings on Friday in Newcastle, and Saturday I have a meeting at 2:30, between 2:30 and 4 in Edinburgh, and 5 o'clock we are coming back. I'm coming back to Newcastle and taking a flight on Sunday back to Heathrow. So there will be no class on Saturday as well as Sunday. Sunday, of course, there will be, because Sunday the gospel class will be there. Gospel is over. The Great Master will be there next Sunday. Because I'm coming in the morning, so there is enough time to. But the Saturday class will be cancelled. Thursday I have taken today. Saturday will be cancelled. Okay, I'll just see if there are some questions. Is there Giovanni is asking a question, is there a way to understand if a specific samskara comes from our early childhood or something that we carry? No, it is a mixture. There is no, nobody can say for certain when these samskaras, the seeds which are there in our consciousness, how long they were there. It might be several lives before. It might be in a previous life. But because they are not expressing itself, when we take birth, many of these things are in latent form. We do not remember that. And thank God we don't remember, because so many things we might have done which are in sanskaras. The best way is to do the spiritual practices as much as possible so that they are burnt. They are burnt or reduced to Dagda Bija Avastha. First, their effectiveness is reduced. And then, when we destroy the seeds by burning them in the light of knowledge or light of meditation, then it does not cause any impact. So, there's no way. I mean, as you said, the yogis do have a strange capacity. Swami Vivekananda, Sri Ramakrishna of course had, but Swami Vivekananda also could read and try to gather from another person's consciousness, know what stage he is in, how much of what kind of meditation techniques will be very suitable for him, meditation or sadhana, the way a person works out the karma. Those things can be determined to a certain extent, but that can be done only by the guru or the spiritual teacher who has developed that capacity. Not all gurus can do. It is difficult because to know the tendencies, one has to observe a lot. To know the samskaras, whether they are of this birth or previous birth or several births earlier, it all comes as a new thing for us. The baby doesn't know, because many samskaras are udara avastha, or not udara. Udara is freely expressing. They are in the sushupta form. They are in the seed form. They are not yet expressed. Only when the child grows up, suddenly he will manifest certain old samskaras which were lying there. And now they have found the right person, the right body where they can express themselves. So it is difficult to know. Now there is one more question. What are the examples of gross samskaras and sukshma samskaras? It's very easy. The examples of gross samskaras are the emotions that we feel, the anger that we feel, things that we can easily perceive. You see a person when he is high strung, we say he's a high strung personality. Whatever he goes, if you say a little, he'll get upset, he'll burst out. So that means a person who is introspective can find out, am I reacting to the outside world? They are gross samskaras, because they are freely expressing themselves now. It's not in a prasupta form. It is not in a prasupta form, that is hidden form, or a sleeping. The samskaras are not sleeping. They are just expressing. And most of the people exhibit it. Unless one tries to suppress it or control it and not show one's real emotion, a straightforward person will be more easy to handle, because he just expresses whatever he feels, he sees. So the sthula or the gross are these gross samskaras are the things that happen, and the subtle are some kind of one subtle klesha I can point out, or the samskaras, is that anxiety. Now, there is no external manifestation. Maybe some of us can recognize some anxiety on the face, some worry on the face. But the person who is anxious, something deep, some deep fear, some uncertainty is growing in his mind. They are subtle samskaras. They are not gross, because they are so subtle that, and if you don't share with it, if you don't do anything, then you suffer. Even if you are having all your gross needs, outside needs met, still this subtle suffering, the subtle tension, the subtle worry. There are people who worry so much, especially when the mother sees the children grow up. They go out, the mother is worried, is anxious, even though nothing has happened to the child, but she gets a feeling, the mother gets a feeling that something might have happened. She starts imagining. So those are all subtle, you can say, samskaras. So that is, these are the examples, a few examples. There are many such examples. We can discuss them. So we'll conclude today. Yeah. There is another question. Also, can they be removed simultaneously, since we seem to be performing karma at all times and prayers at times? Yes, yes, both gross. The mantra has this capacity. That is why that is supposed to be a great method. The japa, tat japa, even japa is prescribed by Patanjali. What happens is japa, though it is a mental process, it helps us to handle the subtle samskaras which we don't know about, to handle them and to reduce its intensity. Kriya Yoga can help us. Unselfish Karma Yoga, when you go on doing, you don't allow the gross samskaras to express themselves. You don't get time to even be angry if you are so busy with your activity. If it's only when you are fully free, when you are lazy, then you start imagining, start thinking, criticizing people, misunderstanding them, or trying to impose our wills on them. There's so many ways of confusing ourselves and confusing other people. But if one is doing with the spirit of karma yoga, spirit of dedication and detachment, then at least at that time when he's doing that karma yoga, he he does not fall a prey or succumb to the uh, demands of the lower mind. So what he does is he does his japa even though he might be doing work, or when he's traveling, he or she might can easily do japa, and that takes care of this hidden anxieties, the sukshma samskaras. Sukshma samskaras are better dealt because we don't know, it is uncertain, and we don't have that insight into knowing exactly what are the old samskaras. But definitely, japa can handle them and reduce their impact. That is, Holy Mother also has promised that if a sword wound was due, you will just escape with a pinprick. You deserved a sword wound because of your bad karma, bad samskaras of the past, but somehow if you meditate on somebody who is holy, somebody who is an avatara, then in the cosmic mind, the subtle changes take place, and the subtle vasanas or kleshas or samskaras are slowly uh, we can slowly reduce its impact and finally totally clean them. Yeah. There's one more question in the chat. 1 minute. Uh, do we see japa in other religions as well? Yes, they do prayer. They may not do japa because japa is exclusively. There are, of course, other traditions. The Russian Orthodox Church, they have a rosary. Even in Islam, Sufi Islam, there is a mantra. But this is a specific technique. They use other techniques to remove the subtle samskaras. Prayer is one of them. So there is prayer in even in the Vedic tradition. The Gayatri mantra is just a prayer. It's not a mantra, though it is known as mantra. It's not by uttering that you get rid of your samskaras. You just pray in a very intense way. So even japa, if it is done with prayer, it becomes more effective in reducing the kleshas. Yeah. So is it possible to receive mantra diksha in Ramakrishna Vedanta Center, UK? Yeah, it is possible, but it requires a lot of preparation. One has to be thoroughly, one has to read properly the source books. Some of the source books, of course, some of the source books are the Gospel of Sri Ramakrishna, the Sunday class, we deal with that. Another source book is Sri Ramakrishna, the Great Master. Both the classes are held on Sunday from 7 to 8 right now. We might change the timing. So these are the two books, very important books. After having read and fulfilling certain conditions, then mantra diksha can be arranged, because it becomes effective only if you uh, do the mantra and focus on the deity whom you consider to be your Ishta. Ishta means one whom you like. So normally, Sri Ramakrishna is the Ishta for all the mantras given in this tradition. So if that mantra diksha is somebody wants one, they have to at least as a bare minimum read the gospel, the whole gospel of Sri Ramakrishna and the great master. So I'll conclude. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Harihi Om Tat Sat. Sri Ramakrishna Arpanamastu.